I thought I'd respond to two assertions made by the Drunken Peasants. The first is that the reason I make videos against popular atheists is to become popular myself. Now, I don't know what to say to these individuals because this is just not the purpose of my channel. The reason I make videos, and I've said this before, is because I believe I have expertise in certain fields. I do have a degree in math and economics, and I do have experience in politics, so I tend to talk about those things. I believe that because I've had all this education, I've had a number of privileges, that I should try and make people more informed about the world, and make the world a little less ignorant on these subjects. And from within this purpose and these values, it makes a lot of sense why I would criticize these popular atheists. Because in my opinion, I think they're undermining a lot of values I hold dear. That when you make misleading statements, when you spread ignorance, you're not helping the world. And in fact, you're hurting your own cause. And what's worse is TJ is just making this assertion, just stating, I'm doing it to become popular without any evidence. Now, TJ is supposed to be a skeptic and has promoted logic shirts, but when it comes time to actually, remain consistent, he can't do it. He just says stuff like this, right? That I'm doing it to get views. Again, where's the evidence? Perhaps I'm engaging in some massive conspiracy to suddenly get popular. What do you have to, in any way, demonstrate that this is just a secret plot for me to gain YouTube views? And even beyond that, it's based on a false premise, because it doesn't matter what my intentions are when I make these videos. Right? I could be doing this for very nefarious reasons. That does not justify what these popular individuals do. So we're still left at square one. Is it right what these popular atheists are doing? Which leads me to the second assertion. And it seems like TJ wants me to make one video where I state explicitly what I have against these individuals. Because he in many parts of that video, he suggested that my argument was that you can't respond or watch a video unless you've seen all my videos. That was not what I was saying, right? The Drunken Peasants brought up this assertion that I never backed up any of my points and I never criticized popular atheists. I'm not trying to keep them accountable. Of course, I brought up why that's completely false. All you have to do is a simple search on my YouTube channel and see that I've talked about these guys a lot. But even beyond that, I'm going to oblige. For the rest of this video, I'm going to explain exactly why I dislike the people I dislike and why I think they need to be held accountable. So, I'm going to leave a bunch of citations in the description because I can't, of course, bring up all the evidence in a short video like this. If you would like to discuss why I chose certain citations or have me explain why I chose them, let me know. And if you think a source is not sufficient, again, let me know. I'll explain why I chose that source or why I think it's relevant. So really, I'm going very much out of my way to give you evidence to provide a very clear case. So here we go. Why do I dislike Thunderfoot? Well, I've had a long history with him. I disliked him once he made videos about Islam, but let's stick to recent videos. He's talked a lot about feminism. Personally, I think he's a rape apologist, right? He's suggesting that women need to worry about how much they drink and how much they dress. Of course, this is very pseudoscientific in its nature. How much is too much to drink? How much is too much to dress? And he's made a lot of strange statements about rape that are related to things like bees and protecting yourself and not looking like a victim, right? The weird statements about body language are pseudoscientific. And they're definitely not scientific, at least. But it gets worse than that because he's made some assertions about dimorphism. And whenever I talk about sexual dimorphism, people always suggest, that, oh no, sexual dimorphism is obvious. And it is true, sexual dimorphism does exist. Men and women are different, especially in terms of size. However, what Thunderfoot is suggesting is that there is some type of biological mechanism that causes gender roles. There is no science to back this up. In fact, it's very much related to the type of arguments racists make. Of course, that alone does not make it wrong, but it should make us very much question the type of claims Thunderfoot is making. And even beyond this, people might have some problems with Thunderfoot's feminist videos, but they might suggest, but he makes science videos, so he's perfectly okay. But there's problems with that too. Even in his more scientific videos, he still quote mines, straw mans, or just misrepresents people. I'll have you take a look at some of Sequester Zone's videos on Thunderfoot and science. In particular, he just did a series on the solar roadways thing, and it's not very surprising that Thunderfoot misrepresented the people who made solar roadways. And even beyond this, in that first Drunken Peasants podcast, people were suggesting that because Thunderfoot is a scientist, he's immune from pseudoscience. Sorry guys, that's not how it works. Thunderfoot is just a terrible individual who is a complete hypocrite. He's pretty narcissistic at many times, and I just despise the guy. Moving on to Jacqueline Glenn. Now, the first time I responded to Jacqueline was when she made this video response to State of Daniel. Now, I disagree almost completely with State of Daniel in that video. However, Jacqueline did such a bad job in that video that she completely misrepresented what Daniel was saying. So, I did a video response where I essentially explained exactly what Daniel was saying, then responded to it. So, this is just trying to explain what my big problem with Jacqueline is. Many times she misrepresents people, she doesn't understand what they're talking about, and she isn't going out of her way to try and understand what people actually believe and respond to it. Now, she's said some other things that I disagree with. She's essentially parroted some talking points by Sam Harris on Muslims and on nuking the Middle East that I very much disagree with, and her recent kick is anti-feminism, where she suggested that the Santa Barbara shooter was not only influenced, or primarily influenced by mental instability and insanity. And of course, a number of people criticized her for this. So overall, I feel like there's this long trend where Jacqueline either misrepresents what's actually going on or just doesn't quite know what's going on and doesn't do enough research. This brings me to Sam Harris. My view with Sam Harris is he's created the moral landscape, which pretends to be a new moral theory, but it's just utilitarianism rebranded. And even beyond that, it's essentially a much more scientism-based version of utilitarianism. And of course, this terrible moral ideology or moral theory doesn't work very well in my opinion. And even beyond that, it leads him to have some pretty terrible very terrible policies. For example, he's pro-racial profiling, pro-Muslim profiling, which, let's be honest, is pro-racial profiling. He's also pro-torture, and he's also pro-nuking the Middle East. So, overall, not a big fan of Sam Harris. I don't like the guy very much. Overall, I don't think he has very good ethical lands to stand on, and we shouldn't respect him very much. Next, of course, is Cult of Dusty. I don't have a ton of problems with Cult of Dusty. I don't respond to him very much. I just don't like his Logic t-shirts and that his outro is just saying Logic. Because even though there are people wearing these Logic t-shirts, what they're not doing is logic. As in, it's not like they're writing a philosophical treatise as to why God is wrong. No, they're engaging in sophistry. They're creating an argument trying to convince people why God is wrong. There's nothing wrong with that, just don't have the pretense that you're epically logical, right? There are plenty of Christians who are perfectly logical and think they have a logical worldview. But you are not any better just by being a Christian or by embracing the word logic. It's something you have to work at. And then there's American atheists, who I dislike and think are ineffective because they spend all their time and money on lawsuits that aren't very effective, billboards, monuments, and sometimes media appearances. Now, the reason I don't think these work is because I'm not convinced at the effectiveness of a billboard or a monument, right? How are they achieving their goals? They don't have a clear plan in my mind. And in fact, it's made worse by the fact that Dave Moscato is going on Twitter suggesting that monuments and billboards have the same effect as other policies or caring about issues such as abortion rights. So there's like just a nonsensical stance going on within the organization. And I have serious questions about their organizational efficiency because they've failed to come through on contests they did. In fact, this is a contest Jacqueline Glenn promoted. My friend DeAndre still doesn't have his membership. Right? We're talking months later. They owe him that membership. They are contractually obligated to give him that membership. Still hasn't received it. And finally, we arrive at TJ, the Amazing Atheist. And I have to start by apologizing because I did suggest that we didn't know where TJ put his not productive money. Now TJ has suggested that he has dealt with this on the Drunken Peasants podcast. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it. I'd appreciate some help looking for it. But I'll take his word for it, right? Maybe he did do something with his money and he just failed, right? I don't think it's that big of an issue to care about. But my bigger problems with TJ are with the First Amendment, because in the past, he suggested that the First Amendment should evolve with the times and protect him on YouTube. Of course, the problem with that is the First Amendment protects private companies and protects their brand. So if we just expanded the First Amendment, it would actually not, in fact, protect the First Amendment for these companies, right? It's a completely non-coherent position if you understand basic civics. And in fact, I brought this up with him on Tumblr. We had a bunch of private messages back and forth, which eventually led to TJ suggesting that I was making slippery slope arguments. And I was trying to explain to him that if the First Amendment just expands with the times and Congress has this authority to expand it, it would destroy the separation of powers, because the judicial branch has judicial review and they determine what the law says and what the Constitution says. But if it can just expand with the times, then essentially Congress can do whatever they want. Right? It isn't a coherent position, and TJ isn't even explaining exactly in legal terms what he wants. Just making this general statement that makes absolutely no sense. And of course, YouTube should be able to kick you off their website or take down some of their videos. It's a private service, and you've agreed to the terms of service. Right? It's up to them to decide whether or not you violated that. And, eventually what happened for TJ is he got the rights to his video back. But overall, I just think a lot of his statements about the First Amendment are dangerous, because he does have a lot of power, and he's saying things that are very misleading, which makes people to believe that they have rights that they don't actually have. And overall, I want people to know about the First Amendment. But there's a lot of ignorance going around, especially people suggesting that In God We Trust is unconstitutional. No, it's constitutional, right? It's been challenged in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court upheld it. There's not a very good case you can bring against it. Now, of course, we think it's stupid, and Congress can, in fact, take In God We Trust off our money, but they're missing the point. These people need to know what their First Amendment rights are. So overall, the theme I'm getting at, and the reason why I think we need to hold these individuals accountable, is because they're not very good at what they do. They're not very effective, and they're misleading and misinform people. And I think TJ really demonstrated this for me when we're near the end of the broadcast. TJ suggested that if he saw me on the street, if he saw me in real life, he would do something to me, as in attack me in some way. So thanks, TJ, for showing everyone that a lot of people who have power on YouTube atheism and movement atheism in general are just terrible individuals who think that they should just go around attacking people when they disagree with them. Right? I don't think my language was that incredibly strong. But apparently I deserve to be attacked or something like that. Maybe I'll give TJ the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he made it hastily. Maybe he wasn't completely serious. But the point is that perhaps many of these individuals don't have a coherent view on rights, ethics, and morals, and this leads them to make decisions that are in their own self-interest at the expense of the group. And that's why I think we should hold powerful individuals accountable, right? It's as simple as that. I don't think it's really that radical, because a lot of the things that I want to happen are basic things like, hey guys, let's not say things that are obviously wrong. I'm not asking for a whole lot. I'm just asking people to make decent videos and maybe take a few minutes thinking about what they actually said instead of churning out a bunch of videos that are poorly made, poorly researched, and don't quite reflect us all in the best light. I don't think it's that radical. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys.